Put your PJs on. It's time for bedtime stories. I've been reading or listening to Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Actually, I finished Red Sister. The Book of the Ancestor trilogy is what I'm reading. So I finished Red Sister, and I would say that is now one of my favorite books ever. I absolutely loved it. And there's so many quotes in that book that are just pure gold. And the main character, Nona, is so completely relatable to me. And like the main themes of the book kind of center around friendship and trust and even faith a little bit. So I would describe the book. You kind of have to know a little bit about Game of Thrones to know what I'm talking about, I guess. But the book is like if Arya Stark went to train with the Faceless Men, but instead of the Faceless Men, they were Shaolin monks, and instead of monks, they were nuns. And it's on a different planet. It's really good, though. So Nona is a young girl. I think she's around 12 when the book starts. And so she is rescued by a nun and is taken to a convent to learn and train to become a Red Sister. And she is she's had a rough life up until that point, and I mean it doesn't really stop being rough, but she's had it rough in a lot of different ways up until that point. But she's so relatable because she seems to have trouble expressing emotions. She has a very similar view of friendship that I have, and she's very protective of the few friends she has because she's never had many friends. And she also questions authority. She doesn't ever just follow any of the rules or guidelines or teachings or respect authority just for authority's sake. Like she wants to understand the reasons behind everything. And, she will follow rules and respect authority if it's, if it is with good reason and for the best and everything. But so much about this main character, I see a lot of myself in the main character. I relate to her so much. But obviously her life is way more interesting than mine, and she had a much rougher childhood than I did. But it was still, just having a traumatic childhood, there's that relatability there. But her view on friendship, she's very, very loyal to her friends that she does have, and she hasn't had very many. And so she's very protective. And, she talks about other characters in the book that always have, like a popular character that always has kind of a little group of, like they're girls at a convent, and like one will have a little group of friends that of following, if you will, that's always, together. And even though she has friends, she still feels more like an outsider, I guess. But it made me think about my views on friendship. And I will hear people talk about their friends, and they'll, people will say like, oh, I have a friend here, I have a friend there, my friend so and so does this, my friend so and so does that, and or has this and has that, or works here, works there, that kind of thing. And I'm just like, how do you have so many friends? Like, that's just something that friendship has eluded me through a lot of my life. And I think it's because of how I define friendship. Like, I have a much, I don't know if it's a narrower view of friendship exactly, but for me to consider someone my friend, I think I have to be able to share, my, show my real self for one thing, without fear of either being judged or them perceiving me as being rude or whatever. But also, like, I want to have deep conversations and have some sort of shared interests and things like that. So, I have like 3 friends. I mean, that I know in person. I would consider some of you who comment on my videos regularly, I would consider you to be my friends. In a conversation with another one of my friends, though, if I'm like, yeah, username number whatever said, it gets a little complicated, I guess. But since I don't know you in real life, so the people that I know in real life, in person, that I consider friends, yeah, there's only 3 of them, and they're scattered around the world. And so, but each of those people, like, I have very long history with, shared interests, and feel like I can be myself around them to a degree. I can really only 100% feel comfortable when I'm alone. But that's just how I am. I don't like to feel perceived all the time. But I think that a lot of people, when they're saying my friend does this or my friend does that, a lot of times, and someone mentioned in a comment on here just the other day that they feel like relationships with neurotypical people tend to be like they are expecting something of us. Then they're looking at what, like, physically what we bring to the table, if we can do something for them. And it's kind of transactional. And so I think a lot of people, I can't say, with certainty that, it's 100% of neurotypical people, but a lot of neurotypical people seem to count these shallow relationships, shallow transactional relationships, as friendships. Like, it's, almost at that LinkedIn kind of level where it's like networking. It's not genuine human connection. It's just networking. And I don't enjoy that type of connection, that shallow, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. Not literally. I don't want anybody that I don't know very well scratching my back. That's weird. But that shallow exchange is what I think a lot of people count as friendship. And I just call that an acquaintance. So I think that's where I get a lot of confusion when I hear people talking about all their friends and what all their friends have and what all their friends do. I don't think that they really know them on a deep level. Like, I have to know someone on a deeper level to count them as a friend and like have a deep, fairly deep conversation with them. So anyway, that's kind of how Nona is. I think that and once I do establish those friendships, I consider those people friends for life. Like, you're going to have times where you disagree. You're going to have times where, things don't go well and, you might embarrass yourself in front of them or vice versa, but you're still friends because, you can that's life and you can deal with that kind of stuff. And that's kind of Nona's perspective on friendship. It's like she will do anything in her power to protect her friends. And that's kind of how she found herself in that position of being rescued by a nun in the first place. And that, oh my gosh, the opening line of that book is it just hooks you right away. It's just phenomenal. It says something like, in the event that you're fighting a nun, be sure that you bring an army of sufficient size. So it's like, whoa, what kind of nun is this? It's I don't know what you call it, ninja assassin nun. But anyway, they're really interesting characters. And one thing that I really related to, there was a quote where Nona starts crying and she says that the tears came, though she couldn't explain why. And the part of her that knew the words to tell why she was crying must be broken. Or maybe she left that part of her behind in like the village that she came from and just forgot that part and left it. But that whole, like, maybe the part of her that could find the words to describe or to explain why she was crying, that really, I found that so relatable because that's kind of how I feel sometimes, and why I'm assuming part of why I was told that I have alexithymia. Like, I will, I might have an emotional response and not be able to tell anyone why or what I'm feeling or describe things in words. Especially big emotions. When they happen, they're rare, but when they happen, like really overwhelming, it's impossible for me to tell somebody in the moment what's happening and why. And, I do have a difficult time identifying and describing what I'm feeling. I have to really think about it first. And, she has a lot of that same experience. Another thing I found relatable in the book was one of the teachers in the book is teaching about poisons, and she, to kind of keep her class on their toes, she'll test them by dosing them with different things, and just individual students. And she tells Nona that trust is the most insidious poison there is. Because, in that case, it was a case of a student trusting that she hadn't poisoned her when she actually had. she was just, it was like one item or whatever was suspected, but it was actually another item or something that was, the affected item. But trust is the most insidious poison. And I have really felt that way most of my life because I've been way too trusting at times, and tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm always mistrustful, kind of expecting people to not be trustworthy. Like, I want people to be trustworthy. I really do. And I want to, look for the best in people and see the best in people. But it's like I've been let down repeatedly. So, I haven't really trusted people much since the Santa Claus incident of 1989. That's when I found out that Santa isn't real. I know I was a little bit too old to be believing in Santa Claus, but that was a big, huge disappointment and, major, event where I found out my parents had lied to me for years. I was mad about it. I was not happy. And I mean, if I had lied to them for years, I would have been in so much trouble. But, they could do it. Why could they do it? There was lots of, and, I thought Santa was the only one person in the world that understood that I actually had been good all year. Because, other people didn't seem to be so convinced. But trust, in my adult life, trusting people that I shouldn't trust, despite the warning in the back of my mind, has gotten me into positions, the same positions that a lot of those students found themselves in. So, it's a really good quote. Trust is the most insidious of all poisons. I can't remember the exact, verbiage of that, but there are so many good quotes. I don't want to spoil the entire book, so I just really, really recommend it with all my heart. It's such a good one. I think, there might be some trigger warnings. You might want to it's considered dark fantasy. It's not as dark as his other book series. I can't remember what the trilogy is called, but it's the Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, that series trilogy. That one's pretty dark. Major trigger warning on it, but this one isn't as dark as that one so far. But there's still a couple of things that happen in the book that, if you're really sensitive, that you might want to just look and see what the trigger warnings are before diving right into it. So, I just thought it was one of the best books that I have read in years, probably. Probably since I finished his Prince of Thorns trilogy, because I liked the Prince of Fools and the Red Queen's War series, but not quite as much as Prince of Thorns, because I thought the main character in the Red Queen's War was such a D-bag. It's like, this guy, he's so full of himself and such a boastful little, yuck guy. But that's kind of the point. It's like you have kind of a duo in that series where, one the seriousness and dependability and being personally accountable warrior versus this spoiled brat, of the Prince of Fools guy. So you get that whole, is it juxtaposition? Is that the word? Yeah, or contrast, whatever. It's a good contrast. It's, kind of reminiscent of Jamie and Brienne. But anyway, that is a really good book, Red Sister, and I've started Gray Sisters. I will probably be raving about Gray Sister next week. I would have saved it to just do one whole trilogy video, but I had so much that I wanted to talk about in that first one that I figured it would be too much to cram into one. So I think that's it for tonight. Have a good night, everyone. Stay warm wherever you are.